shoot the quarry species, which are the ducks and geese that are allowed to be shot during the winter period. All other birds are protected in law and cannot be shot at any time of the year.
Just 4 years to go now to the start of the new millennium, and it looks like being one of the biggest parties ever held, although Prince Charles did recently caution that it shouldn't become just a meaningless event. Well, one thing's for sure, the Millennium Fund is going to have an awful lot of money to spend. It's one of the National Lottery's 5 good causes, and there could well be £1.6 billion in the kitty for projects that mark the year 2000. Now, a lot of those projects are going to come from the countryside, and Judy Parton has been along to see just 2 of them that have been so far successful in bidding for cash.
A white, 3, number 3.
When it started, few predicted it would be such a phenomenal success.
5, each stage takes a
Millions of us go mad every week gambling on the lottery.
44, I wonder who's going mad at this moment.
But it's not only the jackpot winners who are cashing in. Whole communities are set to benefit from the Millennium Fund. Villages like Conisbrough, where the closure of 2 pits has left unemployment high and hopes low.
In 1806, Sir Walter Scott described the Dearne Valley as one of the most beautiful scenes in England, and in the snow it does look really striking. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find a landscape that's been ravaged by 100 years of coal mining. Look at that. In fact, the whole hill is a massive spoil heap, but by the turn of the century, it'll be the site of a new vision for the way we live in the next millennium.
Just such a place could soon become a reality. It's called the Earth Centre.
Conisbrough is an architectural map of the ages. It's medieval and modern. There are the industrial remains of the old railroads and the scars of its mining past. The Earth Centre will be a new revolution.
The mines were here for 100 years, and that might seem like a long time, but it isn't a long time when you look at the next millennium. That's 1,000 years. So we want to bring an economy here which is going to be here for thousands of years, really. And that's what millennial issues are about. It's about getting to the end of the next millennium.
The centre will be dedicated to entertaining and teaching visitors about the planet. The showpiece is the Ark. It'll be filled with audio-visual thrills and a global village. But this is no theme park. Communities and businesses will come here to learn how to change the way they live and work in order to sustain the environment.
Sustainability has come from the green movement, but it evolved as an idea from the recognition that you couldn't just look at the environment, you couldn't just talk about nature, because you always got a community living next door. So you're really looking at man, nature and money. Those are the 3 things that underpin our existence. And I think it's really important that it's in South Yorkshire rather than in London or somewhere perhaps more exotic. I think people will come here because there's sort of curiosity about the area. This is where the industrial heritage lies. This is where the biggest mistakes were made, and this is where the biggest successes are going to happen.
With excellent road and rail links already in place to get people there, the centre expects 2.5 million visitors in its first year. And what might they see as they get off the train is a high-tech green dream. Total cost 120 million, 50 million from the Millennium Fund. Now for another journey into the future.
Isn't this brilliant? It's an American oil-fired locomotive, top speed 20 miles an hour. And it's nice to know that some people will be steaming their way into the year 2000.
The Festiniog Railway has been up and running since the 1830s, when trains ferried slate from the local quarries. At this time of year, they're being checked and tested, ready for their modern cargo, thousands of tourists. In the summer, the trains are constantly on the go, chugging gracefully through the countryside, taking passengers on a wonderful circular trip through Snowdonia National Park. But the circle is broken. You can climb on at Porthmadog and steam to Blaenau Festiniog, then take British Rail to Bangor and a bus to Carnarvon. But the link back to Porthmadog is missing. The 24-mile stretch of track was pulled up 50 years ago. The timetables became obsolete and the stops went to rack and ruin. Now, though, it's all change. The Welsh Highland Railway is reopening. And this is the dream that's set to become reality. Tunnels echoing with the whistle of the 9:15 to Carnarvon. With the help of £4 million from the Millennium Fund, the track is to be relaid. After all, the bed is still there. It's just that the travellers using it aren't the fare-paying kind.
We're recreating a railway that's been closed for about 50 years. We are bringing history back into real life. Grown men playing trains we've been accused of, but this business here alone turns over £2.5 million a year. It is a major industry for North Wales and Snowdonia National Park. The Welsh Highland Railway will provide an infrastructure, a transport infrastructure for the north of the Snowdonia National Park. We'll be able to ask people to leave their cars on the outskirts of the park and use the public transport system to bring them into the park to see the very thing that they're not wanting to destroy.
Importantly, it's hoped the service will profit the local community too. Residents will get passes and travel at a quarter of the fare. Early morning trains will be laid on to take children to school and commuters to work. Carnarvon Castle, here we come. The sun hasn't set on the steam age after all.
Ginny Parton there reporting on two rather ambitious rural projects being helped by the Millennium Trust. But what about much smaller schemes? Can they get help as well? And is it too late to try? Well, we'll let you know after the Countryfile weather forecast for the week ahead.
Thank you very much, John. Hello once again. This picture very much typifying conditions for the week ahead across many parts of the country. Yes, it's going to be cold and wintry again, with snow coming at us on a number of occasions. We end the weekend not too badly, high pressure just about holding on. These weather systems though coming in over the next 24 to 36 hours, they're going to bring widespread snow tomorrow across the British Isles, and that's going to affect us through into Tuesday as well. Strong winds as well, so some fairly widespread disruption across many northern parts of Britain. Little real changes as we go through to the middle part of the week. Another area of low pressure bringing more wintry precipitation across many parts. By the mid part of the week, the low pressure rattling through us at quite a rate, and we end the week with another area of low pressure trundling into the southwest, bringing strong winds and the potential of more wintry weather as we go through into Friday. Now, just to summarise all that, and a little bit to begin with, because I think the weekend is going to be a case of very much watching both your national and your regional forecasts in a lot more detail to keep up with the change in detail. It's going to be rather difficult. We are going to see snow and strong winds throughout Monday and Tuesday, leading to great problems certainly with transport. The rest of the week, snow at times, cold, and some widespread frost by both day and by night. Now, this afternoon's not faring too badly. It's as we go through into the evening, we're going to see that first band of rain working its way in from the west. As it gets into western Scotland, it's going to be turning to sleet and snow. It'll bring rain into Wales and Devon and Cornwall by the end of the night. To the east of that, it stays clear, and as you can see, another widespread frost across many parts of the country. Clear and frosty then in the east to start the day, but the rain in the west turning increasingly more to sleet and snow, and some fairly hefty falls of snow over the northern parts of Britain. I think we could find with the strong winds that's going to lead to some considerable accumulations, particularly over the hills, and in those winds, blizzards affecting many areas, so not a good day to be out and about over northern England and through into northern Scotland. Temperatures fairly immaterial, I think, in the north tomorrow, the best sort of figures around about 4 or 5 degrees. Tuesday, more snow, I think, in the northeastern regions, also through into East Anglia. Elsewhere, a bit of a gap for a time in central southern England, but further sleet and snow working its way across central and southern parts throughout the day. On Wednesday, that next system coming in, I think it means we start off again with more snow in the north and east, and then further sleety, wintry conditions driving in from the west as we go through the day, and a fairly chilly day with the frost through most of the day. Friday and Thursday, more wintry conditions.
Well, now more about the Millennium Project. It's open to any group, and we've got an address coming up in a moment. But the minimum cost of any project has to be £100,000. So smaller schemes could get together with similar ones and form an umbrella project. The rules say that any scheme has to make a substantial contribution to the life of the community it's designed to serve. It has to have financial support from other backers, but it wouldn't be possible without Millennium money. And it's not too late to apply. In fact, the third round of bids opens in July and closes in early September. Here's the address to write to. It's the Millennium Commission, 2 Little Smith Street, London SW1P 3DH. And most of these successful bids so far have had either an environmental or a community base. And that's all from Countryfile today. Until next Sunday at 12 noon, goodbye. Rounding up the rustlers. Next week, how to stop the gangs that steal 250,000 animals every year. Slate is back in demand, so can the quarries of Wales cash in? And back through time to see what Fountains Abbey looked like before it became a ruin.
She's got 2 children, Mr. McCaffrey. She's the sole support of her family. You can't ask me to take a job from her as well.
A question of loyalty.
Nobody gets to do everything they want. Sometimes there's other people to consider.
And the price of betrayal.
I will not have you harassing my employees. You have to stay well clear. Is that understood? God loves you, Kathy, as anyone would.
A Mugs Game, tonight at 9:05 on BBC One.
Walking on water and sailing without sight. How do they do it? Faces from the grave, solving forgotten crimes. How is it done? And Born Free, coming to the rescue of lions in Africa. How do they do that? For the answers, join Eamon and Jenny, Wednesday at 8 on BBC One.
This is BBC One. Now we join John Humphreys on the record.
Good afternoon. A Labour government would tear up big chunks of our unwritten constitution and start again. The plans for Scotland are already causing Mr Blair big problems, but the plans for Wales could cause even more and perhaps even split the Welsh party. We'll be reporting on that after the news read by Maura Stewart.
Good afternoon. The first privately owned passenger trains in nearly half a century have started running on Britain's railways. But the start of rail privatisation has been overshadowed by the decision to suspend one of the 3 franchises because of alleged fraud. The London, Tilbury and Southend line will stay in the public sector while an investigation is carried out.
This morning's first train into Fenchurch Street should have marked the privatisation of what's generally known as the Misery Line. Instead, the LTS sell-off's been suspended, pending the outcome of investigations into alleged ticketing fraud. Labour says it shows the dangers of selling off the network. The government disagrees.
I think any allegations of irregularities have to be taken seriously. We've done that. They're being investigated. I hope we can resolve it quite soon and then make progress with that franchise.
Meanwhile, at Twickenham, the bus operator Stagecoach celebrated its takeover of South West trains with cake and commemorative tickets, which are already collector's items. Its full plans won't be revealed till tomorrow, but they certainly include bus integration. That's politically sensitive. The opposition points out that this morning's first privatised Great Western train was in reality a bus from Fishguard. It says this is what's really facing travellers. Today it renewed its pledge to restore a single national network.
The government should realise that rail privatisation is descending into farce and chaos. They should suspend the privatisation of Railtrack, and they should not award any more rail franchises until we can sort out what is now an unholy mess.
But despite the LTS setback, today's events have officially ended half a century of state monopoly. From tomorrow, Stagecoach will be running 1,500 services daily, and scores of old trains are now getting yet another new livery. The government expects great things from privatisation. Its opponents say the changes are cosmetic. Christopher Wayne, BBC News.
The head of the advisory body on the decommissioning of arms in Northern Ireland has warned of a split within the IRA and a possible return to violence. The former US Senator George Mitchell said that all party talks should begin as soon as possible.
While the IRA has denied any involvement in Friday's gun attack on a police reservist's home in County Tyrone, such incidents have clearly caused concern to the man brought in recently to examine the question of illegal arms in Northern Ireland. Talking to Sir David Frost, George Mitchell expressed his fears about dissension within IRA ranks.
I think there is a danger of a fracture within that organization. It seems clear that not all on the Republican side favor the ceasefire, and the potential for some elements to take direct and violent action, I think, does remain.
Sinn Féin's Martin McGuinness says he doesn't believe there's any danger of an IRA split, but Republicans will be happy with George Mitchell's other comments, that all-party talks should begin soon. Mark Devonport, BBC News, Belfast.
At least 200 people have been killed and 14,000 injured in a powerful earthquake in China. The quake measured 7 on the Richter scale and struck near the town of Lijiang in the remote Yunnan province. 2,000 soldiers are still searching through the rubble.
The search for survivors is continuing through the second night, not made easier by freezing temperatures in this mountain area. Thousands are living in makeshift shelters outside. Rescue officials are appealing for blood, medicine and blankets. The earthquake struck early yesterday evening when most people were in their homes having supper and watching television. Huge cracks appeared in the more modern concrete buildings in the regional capital Linjiang. Many of the frail wooden and mud brick homes collapsed immediately. Communist Party leaders visited the disaster scene today. Hundreds of doctors and nurses have been sent there, and Chinese troops are now taking over the rescue operation. Humphrey Hawksley, BBC News, Beijing.
That's it from the newsroom. Now back to John Humphreys on the record.
Thank you, Maura. In today's programme, the Labour Party wants huge changes to our constitution. Reform of the House of Lords, a Freedom of Information Act, a referendum on proportional representation, new Parliament for Scotland, new assemblies maybe for the English regions, and an assembly for Wales. All are fraught with difficulties, none more so than the plans for Wales, which could even split the party. I'll be talking to Ron Davies, the Shadow Welsh Secretary, a little later in the programme. But first, the return of the prodigal son, John Redwood, who was the Welsh Secretary himself till he was cast into outer darkness for challenging John Major's leadership last summer. He's been welcomed back into the fold. At the end of last week, Conservative Central Office sent out one of Mr Redwood's speeches, a rare honour for a humble backbencher, and the strongest sign possible, perhaps, that he has been rehabilitated. Mr Redwood, good morning.
Good morning.
Why, do you think? Why have you been welcomed back into the fold?
I think Central Office realised that that speech, along with many others that I was making, is taking up points that are very important the nation should see and discuss, points about what Labour has on offer, points about the way in which Labour would do grave damage to the country's economy if their policies were followed, points about the constitutional crisis which Labour would want to plunge the country into. And I'm delighted that your programme is going to be looking at part of that later on, because these policies do need exposure before the general election.
Well, you've made many speeches in the past, or since you challenged for the leadership. None of those has been released. Now this one. Do you think it is perhaps that they need you now rather more than you need them?
I don't think that's quite true, and you better ask them if you want to know their motives for putting it out. I'm delighted they helped me put the message out. I speak to a large number of Conservative associations up and down the country week after week, typically 3 or 4 constituencies a week. And I've got messages that I think will help the party in the run-up to the general election. So I do look forward to working with Central Office from time to time when it's of mutual benefit.
When you challenged Mr Major for the leadership back last summer, your campaign put out that famous slogan, no change, no chance. Has enough changed since then for you to have a chance?
I think there are opportunities for the Conservatives, and I trust there will be many more months to achieve things for this country and to put forward our message before the general election. I expect to see some improvement in the opinion polls when we next see an opinion poll. Labour have done very badly in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I think the public is settling down.